Dylan is not good for me. Like, this is not a good match, and we're just so different. And like, I don't even see how we could like do life together because we want different things. Like, I wanted to travel, and he did not want to travel anymore.
Hey, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Gabby. We both had our own story before our lives completely transformed.
Eventually, we started traveling and doing ministry.
We connected and got married.
Then we started a family.
Then came the shift, a call to live more simple and rooted.
Welcome to Caughversations. Hey everyone, welcome to Caughversations, spelled with C-A-U-G-H. This is our first take, so this feels really weird. We're going to be looking at the camera, but it's a podcast, and Gabby's all about looking at each other. That's what she was saying.
Like 2 inches apart.
Yeah, I mean, it's intimate. So this is just raw. We wanted to start out with why we started this channel. So do you want me to go into that, or do you want to?
Yeah, you could start off.
Okay, so the reason why we created this channel, and if you're a new viewer who doesn't know about our main channel, we have a main channel called the Caughversations Fam. And so on that channel, it's just kind of a mess. It's videos on so many different things, vlogs. What else? Like
Vlogs, there was teachings,
testimonies,
a little bit of everything.
Literally. And obviously there's a lot of editing that happens on that channel where, you know, stuff gets cut out. So on this channel, we just really wanted to keep things raw and simple. Like even with this podcast, it's just one angle. That's something we were talking about off camera. One take. And just literally no editing. The goal is, however long this is, I'm going to just obviously cut to the beginning, throw in an intro, and then the rest is literally just the video, like no cuts. And so we started this channel to share raw, in-depth stories that we have not shared on our main channel, because I feel like there's certain stories that have passed that we can finally talk about. And you could probably think of some in your head already.
Yeah, and even too, we can get way more in depth and have it be conversational versus just like sitting and feeling like we have to do a teaching or a vlog. It's just a podcast is way more.
Yeah.
It's just laid back.
But you should clarify that this isn't a teaching channel.
Yeah, it's not a teaching channel. That's not our goal of this. This is to simply have conversations about our story.
Yeah. So how do we start this out, Gabby?
So I guess we have to start from the beginning
Yeah.
of what was our life like before we met each other, and then how we met each other, and what our first thoughts and impressions of each other were.
The reason why that's important, though, I think, is because as we were talking off camera, just how we view the beginning now versus like what it was like in the moment. Because something that we talked a little bit off camera is our marriage has changed so drastically. And the things that we felt in the beginning, of course, there's still things that are good that I still think are there. But obviously marriage reveals a lot of things. And so we're not only going to talk about it, but eventually later in this podcast, we're going to share our perspective now and what's different, and hopefully it encourages you guys. So Gabby's gonna start off with her story, because she even said off camera that she's the better storyteller and I leave out details. Apparently
He does. He just like skips things. Okay, so I guess I'll start with like where I was at before Dylan, just like really briefly like share our lives beforehand. And so honestly, it's like it's weird to put myself there because it's so different now, but I guess as a backstory, a little bit before Dylan and I met. So I was traveling. The Lord changed my life. He spoke to me about just doing ministry and getting me out of my comfort zone, getting me out of where I grew up in New York. And so I started traveling, and I met a few different ministries along the way over the years. And then eventually I met the same ministry that Dylan was in at the time, called TLR. And, you know, at this time I was like very passionate about traveling, very passionate about a certain type of ministry, because we know it's all different types of forms now, where before I was very like singular minded about it has to look a certain way, I have to be out on the streets, I can't, you know, live somewhere. I was just like so zealous, but I had a pure heart in it, so at least that's good. But so I told myself, you know, I'm just gonna follow the Lord, and however crazy that looks. And so in the back of my head, you know, I wanted a husband, And like I would think about that, and I would think about, what that future would look like, but I was also so happy with like just doing my own thing and like being led by the Lord for myself, because obviously when you're married it looks so different. And so I just love this season of traveling. I love this season of doing new things, new experiences, and it was just so exciting not being tied down. I did not like being tied down to anything. It just wasn't for me.
That was one thing about you too, is like you were very independent. Like obviously I know Gabby now. She was very independent, but you, and I'll read something later on in this podcast. I brought a journal that I had for a reason, because something about you was like you were just doing your own thing. You weren't going to let anybody stop you, especially your family, and you just wanted to do whatever the Lord was leading you to do.
Oh yes.
And so that's a huge part, and it actually ties into eventually when we started, dating, which we don't use that word, courting.
Yeah, that was very much how it was. My walk with the Lord was just so independent in how I met him. And, I grew up in the church world, but that's not where I met Jesus. And so when I met him and started hearing his voice, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is something people don't experience all the time. And so, yeah, I was just doing my own thing. And it was very independent, very just like me and the Lord. Just me and the Lord. That's all I care about. I don't care about nothing else. And that ties to you now.
Yeah, so for me, I was like in a completely different world. And it's funny because something that's crazy about our stories, like, we lived so close, yet we had no idea that we were going to be together. Like, 2 hours, Gabby was living from me, our whole lives, basically.
Before we started traveling.
Yeah. And so I'm back home. I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania, for those who don't know. And I was the opposite in the sense, like, I was very anxious. I stayed to myself. I didn't have a lot of friends. But one thing about me was, even before following the Lord, I actually, for whatever reason, it was in my heart that I did want somebody. Like, obviously I was in sin and stuff and I had my own thing going on, but I genuinely just wanted the right person to be in my life. Like, even though I wasn't following the Lord, I knew that I just wanted one person. I didn't want to be like all the other guys and like go after all the girls, but I just wanted that one person, and I wanted it to work out. And I knew, obviously, that marriage was the right thing. And so that was already something in my heart. But I just went about it the wrong way, and I was trying to fill a void that was in my heart. And growing up, when I was real young, my parents obviously got divorced, and I think that probably played a part. It probably just hit later on in my life. And so I just chased a lot of different hobbies, and I went from thing to thing. One thing about me is I can never stick to one hobby. I constantly just went from basketball to skateboarding. I played a lot of video games. I did live streams, and I just did all this stuff, and nothing ever was a solution. I always felt empty. And so eventually my mom, who was following the Lord at the time, because she had her own dark testimony at the time where she was going through some really rough things, and she encountered the Lord. And so she was obviously that seed in my life. And eventually I hit a breaking point. I was in a certain situation, and I shared it on past videos. I mean, you could probably find the videos on our channel or even my old channel. But I was in a situation where I was just in a really bad relationship, and it left both of us empty, and we were both hurt, and I was even in the wrong. And I share that part because most people, when things happen, they like to play the blame game, but I was definitely a problem. I was not a good guy. And once I hit that breaking point, though, started traveling, doing ministry, and eventually that's when I got introduced to Gabby.
Yes, it's hilarious too, because before we actually met, Dylan already knew who I was and was following me on TikTok.
Yeah, I knew she had TikTok because what happened was, basically I was posting a lot on Facebook at the time, and one thing about me too was when I was struggling, I didn't really have anybody to go to, so I'd post on social media. And then Gabby came across one of my posts and basically tried encouraging me.
Before I even met him.
Yeah.
And I didn't even really know who he was, because what happened was, I was following I was friends with certain people in the ministry. And so one of our mutual friends like had posted something with Dylan. And so I think I friend requested you. I think that's what happened. And then eventually you accepted me, and I saw all these like super sad posts from Dylan. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, like poor guy." But then anyways, like months later, we actually met because I went to my first discipleship school through this ministry. And I actually remember like my first impression of Dylan was like I was just not interested at all. Like I was like, this guy's not my, I mean, I felt bad for him. And like, you know, obviously I would be friends with anybody. So I wasn't like opposed to him in a friendship type of way. But romantically, I had zero thoughts about him romantically. Like he wasn't my type of person. Like I wanted like a certain, I guess I wanted me, honestly. Like I wanted someone just like me, which, you know, the Lord usually doesn't do. And so I was envisioning a certain type of person. And so when I thought of Dylan, it just wasn't like what I envisioned.
Yeah, and so just to explain a little bit more, like we highlighted the school. So basically there were these 3 schools, at least for me, I believe it was 3. And it was called a Luke 10 school. And basically the whole point of the school was it was this ministry called the Last Reformation, and they would train you how to live the life of a disciple. So it wasn't like church, but you were actually taking those steps to fulfill what Scripture's called us to do. And so that
like
was
the Great Commission.
Yeah, so that was the school we were at. And the school where you were at, that I wasn't even thinking of like a relationship at the time, but I do remember there's a lot of these moments where like one situation there was a person that was like basically, I don't want to say Jezebel because that's kind of harsh, but like one person was trying to get me to, you know, fall short.
Was this your first school?
I think it was the first one.
Yeah, so Dylan went to a school before I did.
Yes.
And then his second school, he was a helper, they call him, and that was my first school as a student.
Yeah, so there's that one situation, and then there's a second situation. And then even the first 2 schools, like, it's hard to explain, but Gabby, like, we weren't even, I mean, because you made it seem like you were thinking of me. I guess it's hard to explain because we kind of...
I'm talking about first impression, though. Like, my first impression of you, like, at my first school as a student, I had zero desire.
Yeah, because I wasn't thinking the first or second school. And then even when we got to the 3rd school, which was this...
That's a way ahead.
Yeah, that's way ahead.
Let's just start with, what was your first impression of me?
I wasn't really, like...
Like, not even romantically, just like, what did you think of me?
It's like I'm reliving the moment again because there's so many schools and I'm trying to remember, like, it was the second one.
You thought I was cute. I remember that.
Yeah. No, I say it like that because I think even at the second school, just being real, like, I was still very much lukewarm versus the California school, which was after that. And so this second school, I was like, I mean, I was surrounded by a lot of people, and so that was hard because even my mom at the time, I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but she was like, "There's a lot of pretty girls at this school, Dylan. Like you know, you might find the one here."
And
basically,
she pointed me out.
Yeah, she did point Gabby out.
I only knew about this like later on. I wasn't physically there.
But I wasn't really thinking of one. I wasn't even confident in the first place, so I think that's why I wasn't really thinking of anyone, because all the people that were there, I was like in my head about it. I'm like, well, none of these women are gonna want me. They're like so like, especially Gabby. Like I said about her, she was doing her own thing. Nobody was gonna stop her. She's like so bold for the Lord and like just wanted to. She would go place to place, and it's really hard to explain, but like she wasn't thinking of anybody but the Lord and what He wanted, and yeah, very zealous.
I was very zealous. So yeah, like that was our first impression, and from there, like Dylan's saying, like the first couple months that we first met, we just I guess didn't really think of each other that way. We honestly didn't really talk. At that, I'm going to use location so it's not as confusing. I'll say the Florida location. Mm-hmm. That's where we met, because saying school is probably going to get people tripped up. But yes, in Florida, we barely talked. We only saw each other like here and there. And it wasn't towards the very, very end of Florida, of being there, that we started to have like little.
It wasn't in Florida for me though.
No, I'm not saying we liked each other. I'm
Oh.
saying this is where we started to have like a little bit of friendship. Like
Oh,
we would
yeah.
talk a little bit because we both had an interest of video. Like Dylan was on YouTube,
Yeah.
I was on TikTok, and this is just the way like we wanted to preach to certain people. And so I remember like very towards the very end, you know, we started to talk just little bits though. It wasn't like anything crazy. And then, you know, I had asked him to do like a short video with me. And looking back at that video, like we looked so like
Just different.
no, I mean
I don't-
like we looked flirtatious in the
I
video
don't
to me.
feel like I was.
I don't think you were. I'm just saying there was like something when you look at the video. At least I feel that way. But I'm also just like
I mean, maybe it was just that. Like, obviously, the Lord knew what was gonna happen like months later, but
we didn't like each other like at all.
I'm only expressing this so much because like I literally wasn't thinking of anybody the first or second school. I just had a lot of temptation because there's a lot of women pursuing me, which isn't biblical. I know there's stories maybe where it worked out for some people, but I just knew like these situations were no good, and I wasn't really thinking of anyone.
Yeah.
But to dive a little bit deeper, this is where things really started to take a turn. So at the second school that Gabby
I'll
and I
use
were at,
locations.
yeah, Florida, the Florida location, which was the second school for me. I remember that school was hard for me because I knew it was coming to an end, and I was very close to my family, which is a whole nother story that we could dive into, but that would be like a whole second podcast. Yeah. But my family was at the second school, and I knew afterwards I probably wasn't going to see them again for a while. And which is what happened. So there was this one day, and this is a little exclusive, but I was in the shower praying. Like, not even just praying, I was like angry at the Lord. I was like, Lord, something's got to happen. I said very angry. I can't do it like how I did it, but I was like, Lord, if nothing happens by the end of the school, I'm just going to go back home. And, you know, if I fall away, I fall away. Whatever happens, happens. And I was being real with him. Some people would look at me and be like, how could you talk to the Lord like that? And sometimes you do that to me, but I was very serious. And I think that's why the Lord, you know, was listening to me and he heard me. And I remember literally the next day, somebody came up to me and they're like, hey, Dylan, do you want to come to the next school and help out? Which would be the third school in California.
Your third.
Yes.
Not my third.
My third school. And I did not know that Gabby was going to be at this next school. So once again, I wasn't thinking of Gabby. But I just knew when this person asked me to go to California, I just knew there was a reason. Like something was going to happen there. I knew I was going to help out with some film stuff because the leader of the ministry that we were in, he was starting a podcast. And so I got to help in that season with the podcast.
Yeah, and my end of that Florida time is actually, I remember receiving a dream from the Lord, and I actually totally forgot about this. But this dream literally, like the Lord literally said that my husband was going to be at the next school. And I was like, what? Like, I had no desire for my husband to come from this ministry because honestly, like, I loved the ministry, but it seemed like a lot of people had, like, crushes, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to just get so distracted. Like, I'm here to learn more about being a disciple. Like, that just doesn't sound like a good idea to like somebody in this ministry. But this dream was so clear. It was so evident. And so I was just really confused because the whole backstory is I really thought I knew who the Lord selected as my spouse when I arrived. That's why I wasn't even thinking about the people there, because I had met somebody else through another ministry, and I was like, oh, I think this is going to be my spouse. Like, I was just getting all these, like, dreams and, like, misinterpreting them, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I was like, wait, is this guy going to come to the school? Because how else? Like, I really believe this. And so I was confused. But I remember, you know, and this was towards the very end of the Florida time, that I had this dream. So I remember it was the day I was leaving Florida to drive to California, because the whole time I was in Florida, I was really hoping that I'd be a part of the next school as a helper. I just didn't want to leave. Like, I wanted to be connected with the people in this ministry, and like I just felt like it was what the Lord was leading. And so that worked out, ended up happening. And so I'm getting ready to drive over and start heading to California, taking like a long week trip to get there and take our time. And I actually remember Dylan and I like had this, I don't know if you even remember this, but we had this quick like exchange outside where I was like, I like saw him and I was like, oh, bye Dylan, I'm gonna head to California. And I did not think he was gonna go. Cause like honestly, that Dylan was like super, like he said, super anxious, and like it didn't seem like he wanted to be there at all. Like he did not. It wasn't his thing. Like, in terms of, talking to people and like outgoing and all that. So I just didn't think he was gonna go. But I remember, if you remember that conversation, I had asked you, oh, are you going to California? Do you remember?
Honestly, I don't.
Come on, Dylan. This is why I tell the stories. But so I talked to him. I'm like, oh, so what are your plans? Are you going to California? And you're like, yeah. And then I remember that dream came to my mind. The dream where the Lord said that my husband was going to be at the next school. And I was just like, what? And I'm like, no, that's not the Lord. So I just like swiped it out of my mind.
That's crazy how like that little detail I honestly forget. I feel bad. Because that, like, she knew way before I did. Like, I was still so... Like, I was focused on so many other things. Like, especially when I was asked...
And you'll see this in the next date, how distracted Dylan was.
Yeah, like, this whole podcast thing was freaking me out because it was more professional than just the typical YouTube video. Like, when they asked me to do the videos, I was, like, so terrified. Because I knew how, like, important it was to Torben.
Yeah.
But even like when we got to the California school, it was like the same issue that I had in the other schools where there were still people like
Pursuing
I feel like
you.
Yeah, there's people pursuing me, but everybody was just so hyper fixated on like relationships and finding the right one. Remember that?
Yeah, and what's really interesting is usually with the schools there was always a like 2-month break or something. Our school was like a 2-week break. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Which I think was like interesting in itself. So yeah, we arrive in California because it's such a short break in between the two schools. And I think such an important detail on my end is I remember during that week-long road trip, I was with another sister and a brother. I remember being at a hotel, and Dylan actually arrived at the same hotel the guy he was driving with. They both did. And I was like, that's interesting.
Shout out to Nolly, by the way. I want to highlight that actually. Like, I went all the way from Florida to California with a brother named Nolly. He actually, I think he's still doing ministry in Florida. But anyways, I didn't have my license at the time. So he literally drove from Florida to California all by himself, and we were doing 10-hour days. So
yeah, that's a long time. But yeah, so we're at the same hotel, and I think Dylan was in his room, or maybe this was before he arrived. I don't know. I just remember I was at the like hotel pool, and there was, for some reason, I was just like feeling bad for Dylan. I think he made like a Facebook post or something, because again, that was just like where he was vulnerable at the time. And I remember actually texting you. Hopefully he remembers this detail. But I remember texting him like this whole thing, like personally, and then I like sent him money or whatever because I felt led to give him money.
I do remember that.
And I remember it was that very moment that like the Lord instilled like this like desire to help him, but I didn't understand it was like maritally as a helpmate. But I remember a desire to help and to like I just like felt a love towards him, and I just thought it was like brotherly love or whatever. But I remember that very moments when it happened, and I was just like, this is so weird. Like, I don't know what, like, this is different. But yeah.
That's crazy to think about. See, Gabby sewed into me, and I sew into you every week now.
Shut up. Yeah, exactly. It was multiplied, my generosity. But yeah, and then that was before we arrived in California.
Remember you were scared of the bed bugs too because it was a Motel 6?
Yeah, I literally had everybody pray, like, please don't let these bed bugs bite. Like, it was scary. But yeah, that was before California. Then we arrive in California. If there's anything you want to say in the beginning of California.
So, in the beginning of California, it was... I want to say something positive first because I thought it was going to be kind of intimidating to connect with new people because it wasn't a lot of the same people. There's a bunch of new students at the school, and I was like encouraged because I felt like I could actually look people in the eye, and I felt confident in myself. And just, it was so easy to make friends. Like, a lot of these people became family, obviously. And so that was something that made me feel good. There were people that looked out for me, cared about me because they knew it was hard that my family wasn't around. Like, from California, just a quick highlight. I don't, how many months was it?
It's usually like almost 3 months.
Well, there's 3 months at the school, and then I think there's another 2 or 3 months before I finally seen my family again. So, like,
well, you went to Indiana after, but that's like further on.
I know I'm not going into Indiana. I'm just saying, I'm highlighting that, like, I didn't see my family from California in Indiana for like months. So that was a huge, like, stepping stone for me because it really grew me. But the first half of California, even to the middle half, it wasn't really anything crazy. Everything happened towards the end.
Yeah, it was mostly, I think that's when the Lord really started to work in me at that point because again, I said earlier that this whole time, like for many, many, many months, it was like 9 months straight of like thinking someone else was my spouse, but I didn't say anything. Like, I knew better than to do that. And so I would just pray about it. And I just felt like, peace, but then not peace, peace, and then not peace. So though, like, I was getting dreams, the fruits of the Spirit didn't line up. And I was just kind of confused. But I remember, halfway through California, I started to get, like, just, like, anxious about the situation of, like, Lord, is this really you? Like, I'm just confused. Because if something's you, like, you're peaceful and you, like, stand on it solidly. And so, yeah, halfway through this school, 2 sisters came up to me and they literally said, there's something that you need to surrender to the Lord. You need to put it on his throne. And I was like examining my heart and I'm like, Lord, there's literally nothing else it could be but this one thing. Like, I was just at a point in my life where there really was nothing else that I was thinking about. I was just like, I already left everything behind. And like I was like pure in heart really at that time. But I knew that there was something I was holding on to, which was this belief that this guy was my spouse. And it was holding me back because obviously it wasn't the truth. And so I remember that night, I'm like, oh, wow, Lord, like, this is crazy. It's been 9 months that I thought this. Like, wow. But at the same time, I was, like, so relieved. Like, I remember thinking I was going to have to pray for, like, 5 hours to, like, let this go. And, like, because I thought I was going to be sad and, like, it would be hard or I would, like, beat myself up. But honestly, it was like literally a 30-second prayer.
So when you surrendered me...
Not you.
Oh, it was the other guy. But you did at one point.
This is further. Let me finish.
I'm so bad.
I know, Dylan's like going all over the place. So, no, this was a different guy that I had met many months ago. And I just thought that the Lord was like, I thought this was the Lord's person for me. And so I literally said a prayer. I said, Lord, I surrender this person to you. And then I like literally fell asleep and I felt so good. Like the next day I felt so peaceful. I felt like something lifted off me of like this weight of believing something. But I will say I'm really thankful that the Lord let me believe that, because I think if I didn't believe that I would be distracted in the schools of like thinking, oh, is this my spouse? Is that my spouse? Even though I didn't really want to meet someone through the TLR school, I still think the enemy still would have like got me distracted, because that was a huge tactic during these schools.
Well, the reason why I was asking though is because was that when I was in my situation is when you surrendered this other person?
Yes, but that's further ahead.
It's just so much. It's
I know,
a lot.
there's so much to
People
the story.
People are going to think I don't know our own testimony, but it's okay.
I think it's because there's like a lot of things that happen on my end, and like you might not know the timing, because there's just like there's so many details to it.
Yeah, and I think with this podcast, so like what we'll have to do for future episodes is like actually dive into one topic.
Yeah.
Because when we title it like our whole, like we could title this our story, and like that's so many different like what's a good word, facets.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think like there were so many details to like what happened through us, because like even after I surrendered, that's when our friendship really started building, because before like we didn't really talk, but then like what happened was the Lord really put it on my heart to like start up this like TikTok group, which sounds so silly, but like I knew that he was speaking this, and it just wasn't even for the TikTok. So basically, I prayed for people. Dylan was one of the people of like 7 people to meet frequently for us to like do content to talk about Jesus. And that's where like our friendship really built. If you remember any of that, when I
No, I
anything.
remember that. I was already doing so many videos at the time. I was like, what are you remember those, like, I don't know if you watched a lot of YouTube, but there was this trend where everybody was vlogging for a certain amount of days. Like there was people vlogging like every day for a whole year, maybe even longer. But anyways, that's how I was at the school. Like every day I was posting a YouTube video. I posted like 3 TikTok videos every single day.
Yeah.
And eventually it's just everybody started doing. I remember that's when you started your YouTube channel.
Oh
And
yeah,
then,
he helped me set up my YouTube.
yeah, and then Exona started one too, right?
Yeah, we did it the same day. You like showed us
Yeah.
how to make our channel.
So all this was happening, and then of course when she asked me to do a TikTok page, I was down. It was like us and maybe 4 or 5 other people.
It was 7 in total. Yeah,
And
7 people.
It was cool because we had like the system and everybody posted each day of the week. But again, still wasn't thinking of anything.
Yeah, like I thought this group was for TikTok, but little did I know it's how like the Lord built our relationship, like our friendship in order to develop further. Because we didn't really talk up until that point. Like we just talked to different people. We kind of had like our, I don't want to say cliques, but like just people we gravitated towards.
Yeah.
And so like after that, we started like sitting together and talking.
But I feel like I gotta catch up back to you. Because like I'm like kind of doing my own thing at the school. So one thing I want to highlight too at the school was I was very close to one family specifically. There was a lot of people close to this family. Mm-hmm. Basically, there were cabins on this property in California. There were RVs. There were even there was a couple that was literally sleeping in a tent. So everybody had their own little area. Mm-hmm. And there's this one specific family that had their RV in the property, and everybody just loved them and would hang out in the RV together all the time. But me specifically, I was just there all the time. Again, I'm away from my parents, so I'm hanging out there. And I'm kind of just sharing my side fast to catch back up to Gabby. But anyways, I'm connecting with all these people. And what happened with me was there was another, I don't want to say situation, but there was.
Well, there was.
Yeah, it was a situation where somebody liked me. But the difference was versus everybody else, like the other people that liked me, they would pursue me. This person liked me, but they were going about it the right way at least. They weren't pursuing me. They still wanted me to pursue them. And I thought it was the Lord, one, because I was terrified. And I was like I remember basically I was fighting my flesh because I basically had to write this letter. And, like, the person's dad was very high up in this ministry at the time. Like, very involved. Like, he was one of the leaders. So I was like, oh, man, I gotta, like, talk to this person's dad. It was this whole thing. It took me, like, 2 or 3 days to write this letter. I eventually talked to him. I literally remember talking to him in a car. And he was very nice, and it all worked out. Like, at that time, it really seemed like it was the Lord. And like there was this whole thing planned where we were gonna all like travel together basically and do ministry together. I was gonna actually stay in I was gonna leave California and go back to California. But that's basically, I was in my whole situation, and that's kind of where when Gabby was talking, that's my perspective.
Yeah, I did realize I left out a detail, so I'll throw this in there real quick and then I'll like catch up. But yeah, I think part of like what we both walked through, like Dylan's saying, is there was other people pursuing us. And I'm not saying they had bad intentions or anything, but I think that added to like the confusion. Yeah, because there was someone that thought I was their wife. And I remember this really getting to me when I first arrived in California, right before I gave up this other dude that I thought was the Lord. And I was like, wait, Lord, this person's super mature. I really look up to this person. They're strong in the Lord, and like I'm good friends with them. but I don't feel a desire for them. And I think I would feel that for whoever my spouse is supposed to be. But I was like broken up about it because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm such a babe in the Lord. I was born again for like maybe a year and a half at this point. And so I was like, am I just like not hearing clearly? Like, will the Lord just give me desire for this person? Like, is this my cross to bear? That's kind of what I thought, is like, this person's great, but I don't like them in this way. So are you just going to put me with them? Like, so I have to bear this cross? Like, I was just like torn up. Like, Lord, would you really do that to me? Like, shouldn't I like the person romantically? And I was just like going at it for a couple days in my mind. But then I believe the Lord was speaking to me that no, like, you will feel an attraction romantically. You will desire that. Like, that's not wrong, because I felt guilty. Like, oh, is it wrong to not want something? But I think the Lord was just really showing me his goodness that, it's not selfish. Obviously, the Lord's going to put that in you. And so that thankfully was resolved. And then, I gave up this other person. So now catching you up to speed. I started to hang out with the same family. Like, I was never close with them, but then I started to get closer with them, during this school. And so, like, kind of like when Dylan was going through his situation is when I started to get closer to this family and going to the RV and hanging out with them. And, at this point, my mind's more free because I don't believe it's this other guy. And so that's when I honestly started to kind of develop feelings for Dylan, which was like so weird to me. We were spending a lot of time together at this point. Like just as friends though, and it wasn't like anything bad, but just like a lot of time with our videos. We would talk, we'd have like moments of like sharing things. And I was just like seeing how much the Lord was growing in Dylan, because when I knew him in Florida, he was like so to himself, so shy.
But even as you share that, like when you're sharing that, was that when I was in my situation still? Like, did you know about it?
I didn't know when you were in the situation, so I'm not sure if you were in the situation when I started to develop feelings. I think I started to develop feelings before you were in the situation.
So I'm trying to remember when you like knew in California, like when you knew about the...
I'll get to that. So, yes, I started getting feelings. But I was trying to throw them away because I'm like, oh, Lord, like, I just gave up this person. Mm-hmm. Why do I have feelings for Dylan? Like, I'm such a mess. I'm a bad disciple. It's literally what I was thinking. And so I was trying to just, like, throw them out because I'm like, Dylan is not good for me. Like, this is not a good match. And we're just so different. And, like, I don't even see how we could, like, do life together because we want different things. Like, I wanted to travel, and he did not want to travel anymore. And we'd have conversations, and it's just like we didn't seem like we were going in the same way. We just had totally different perspectives and personalities, just literally opposites. But I couldn't deny that, like, I felt different with Dylan than I did with anybody else. Like, just like not to say this in any mean way, but at that time I didn't see a reason why I liked him. I don't know how to explain it. Like, that sounds so bad. But it's like there was nothing specific that like really drew me to him, except I just like had a desire for him. Like, it was literally that simple. I don't know how to explain it. I wasn't like, oh wow, he's like this or he's that. It was just like I felt feelings, I guess. It was just weird to me. Or before I would like people for certain things about them. Which I know sounds crazy. But anywho. So yeah, I start to like Dylan. I start to get like signs from the Lord and dreams, but I'm like, oh, I don't want to trust those because those could lead you astray. But I couldn't deny that there was peace about it. There were signs, and there was also just a desire that did not make sense. I've never experienced the Lord like literally changing you. Of like, I didn't like him. I wasn't even attracted to him when I first saw him. Like, I literally wasn't, but then I was. And some other sister shared with me that this happened to her also. And so, yeah, I just started getting feelings, and I thought he liked me too at this point. It just seemed that way. But then I learned about his situation with somebody else. And I remember just being like, what? Like, I remember when someone else told me, and it was my really good friends, and they're like, Gabby, I think you should give up. Because I had told them, I'm like, please pray. Like, I have feelings for Dylan, but I don't know what to do about it. And so I had told just them, because I wasn't about to tell everybody. And they had told me to give Dylan up, to surrender him because he's with this other girl. And so I was just like wrestling with that. I'm like, Lord, like, I really feel like you've made this clear. and I'm not going to pursue him, but should I just give him up because my good friends, like, I know they want what's best for me, but am I hearing that from you? And I was just kind of like stuck there, and I felt so saddened by it, which is weird because like I had just like this was like a new thing for me, like a new desire. But I felt so crushed in spirit. It was so weird. Like I was so sad about it. And so I'm just like, you know what, Lord, whatever. Like I know that you're good, and so if this is not of the Lord, you have something else, but if it is, like you're going to work it out. So whatever. I give this to you.
But you still had one of your friends. Didn't they have like a vision in the?
That was afterwards.
Oh, that was afterwards. See,
Sorry, there's like a lot.
I'm skipping around so much.
I feel like there's so much on my end at this point, but then eventually I think there's more on Dylan's end.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more on your end in California.
Yes.
In Indiana.
That's when Dylan was getting stuff.
Yeah. But I do want to say, as she was talking that whole time, I'm still oblivious to everything in that moment as we're in California. Like
I thought you knew that
I had no idea in California the whole time. And later on, when we did start, like when we made it known, everybody thought I was crazy that I didn't know. They're like, "How could you not know, Dylan?" And I think,
like who?
I think Exona said that to me.
Probably Lorelai too.
And I'm pretty sure Alyssa said that to me too as
yeah.
well. There's just people that...
There's people that could see it.
Yeah.
Man, that even reminds me. Like, way before I liked you in California when we were just friends, there was literally somebody, one of my friends said, like, "Oh, is it Dylan that you like?" And I was like, "What? No, are you crazy?" She probably remembers.
But see, that right there, I mean, I feel like that actually shows it was the Lord. Because with my situation, there really wasn't confirmations like I thought there were at the time. Mm-hmm. Like, there's nobody who had words like they had for us.
Or that could see it.
Yeah, it was just kind of... I was definitely caught up in my feelings, but it did seem like the Lord at the time, so that's why it was so difficult. Because something could seem like it's of the Lord, but it's really not.
Yeah. I mean, that's how my situation was before Dylan, that I had to give up. But
so,
yeah...
We're at the end of the school, or you want to go there now?
Yeah, because that's when I gave you up. And I mean, there's probably things I'm forgetting, because it's just like, a lot of these things I wrote down, and I'm trying not to take 5 hours to explain this. But yes, I surrendered Dylan, and it was like very hard to be around him, because I'm like, oh, like, and at that point I knew that this other person and him were like a thing, and I was friends with her too, so obviously I didn't want to do anything to jeopardize that, or like, I also didn't want to like, manipulate the situation, because I felt like if I were to tell, like, this was my, I don't know if it was right or correct, but in my mind I thought, if I tell Dylan how I feel, I think he would go for me, but that would be wrong. Like, that would manipulate the situation, and that wouldn't be by the Lord. I'm gonna let him come after me if it's the Lord. And so, you know, we were still like friends and talked, and I remember it was like the last day actually of the school, Dylan, do you remember? You were like vlogging and recording everybody, and you started recording me as if you didn't know I was also going to Indiana.
Yeah, I had no idea.
That is something I skipped. I didn't know I was going to go to Indiana, which was also where he was going next. I was praying the whole time, like, Lord, what am I supposed to do? Because I had wanted to go to Indiana with this family, but I knew Dylan was going. And so I was like, I'm about to not go because Dylan's going. Like, I do not want to go somewhere and, like, follow him or hope for something that might not be you, and I just don't want to go out of my flesh if this is my flesh. But I remember I was like praying about it, and I was like, Lord, I need to know what to do. And the wife of this family, she actually came up to me and started praying for me. But there was like 5 people laying hands on me. But her specific hand was super hot, like super hot to the touch. And I just got a word that it was her. Like, I knew it was her praying for me. And I turned around, and she literally invited me. Or maybe I asked. I don't know. Either she invited me there, or I had mentioned it to her. So, I don't know. Either way, like, it came about from the Lord. And so I knew, okay, you know, even though I don't want to see Dylan, honestly, I need to go to Indiana. But first, I had to take a trip to New York, I think, or somewhere.
Yeah, and I remember
like a
that
week or
too.
something.
There was a moment we had, and you were actually asking me to pray. I think it was me and Exona with you.
Yeah, no, you and Lorelai.
Oh, me and Lorelai. Okay.
Yeah, so that, I think, was right after Indiana. Like, finding out I was going to Indiana, I meant.
No, you were asking if you were supposed to go back home to New York.
Yeah, so like I think I at this point I knew I was going to go to Indiana, but not the timing. And so I was like, "Oh, do I have to visit my family first?" And then I asked Dylan to pray and another sister Lorelai, and they both confirmed that I was supposed to go visit my family first.
Yeah, and in my situation, I only had really two choices, but because I was in this situation, I I knew I was going to go to Indiana, and then I already thought I had it all figured out that after Indiana, I was going to go back to California and be with this family because I thought I was going to end up with this other person. But anyways, Indiana, which I want to share mine because that's where like I had a lot going
So
on.
share before I came to Indiana.
So yes, for me, basically, the California school ended, and this family that had the RV, they were traveling from California all the way back to Indiana. And so it was this fun journey. I remember the day that we left, it was a hard moment because just a few days ago, I started pursuing this other person, and I was so sad because I had to obviously leave this person and go to Indiana. But at the same time, I was happy because we had all these cool pit stops planned, and I remember going to see the Grand Canyon, and it was just fun being
Oh,
around.
I did too.
Oh yeah, you were
That's
there.
great. Well, I wasn't there with you, but I also went to see it.
It's so much. That's crazy
I
though.
know.
But anyways, yeah, this family, I just even if like I hope they're watching because like I still love this family to death. I'd love to like visit them and like we haven't seen them in so long, but Gabby and I still like see their posts and stuff and what they're up to, and I miss that. Indiana, by the way, was my favorite season
Same with me,
out of my whole
honestly.
walk. And so I get to Indiana after all this traveling in the RV, and I feel like Indiana was the season where I really grew as a man. Because again, I haven't seen my family since that Florida school. So that's several months being away from my family. And so in Indiana, there was a lot of like spiritual growth, but I think there was more practical growth. Like I had to figure out like my ID situation and stuff. I was working on getting my driver's license, which didn't happen at the time, but I was trying. And I was just figuring out all these practicals. I was really healthy and fit at the time. Like,
Working out a lot.
yeah, me and my brother Nolly would run every morning. We'd work out, lift
You would
weights.
wake up really early too.
We had like a great schedule, and I was just
Yeah.
so joyful. Literally every day I woke up, I was so joyful.
It was such a good time.
But then there was a shift. So what happened was when I first got to Indiana, it was literally just me and the family, and then people started coming like on their own timing, and eventually everybody was there. And during my time in Indiana, I was just having little communication with this other person that I was pursuing. And we would talk over FaceTime and stuff and just share updates, get to know each other since we weren't with each other. But I finally started to feel a certain way. Like, I don't know if I was just annoying because I know how I was in the world. Like, when I was in the world in certain relationships, I would like constantly text or FaceTime the person that I was talking to. So maybe I was just super annoying and wanting to talk too much. But something shifted where I started feeling emotions that I felt in the world, like in all my worldly relationships. And I knew, well, if I'm born again now, like these emotions aren't normal. Like I shouldn't feel this especially if I should trust this person, especially like if we're both in this ministry school and stuff. And like I started feeling jealousy. I started having trust issues. Like this person's not talking to me this much, and when they do talk to me, it just doesn't seem like they're as interested. And I was driving myself crazy. I remember we went camping with the family. Like we went to a campsite, and there was one night where I couldn't sleep, and I was like, why doesn't this person seem like they want to talk to me anymore, blah blah blah. But basically, and it ended up actually being the Lord. And so to skip some time, and Gabby can come and jump back in and share more of the details, but eventually Gabby did come. And I remember still in that moment, like things were just getting worse, and I still had all these bad emotions, jealousy and stuff.
I'll jump in real quick before you get ahead of this.
Okay.
So I remember I first came. I almost did not come to Indiana because I was in New York. And again, I just did not want to go where Dylan was at. I'm like, I just feel like this could be bad for me because I'm going to be thinking of him in a certain way. And like, I surrendered this to the Lord. And so I need to like keep it surrendered. But I'm like, I knew it was the Lord. I had to go. So I arrived to Indiana with two sisters. And I saw Dylan. And I literally remember for like the first 3 days straight, I was like not talking to him. And I wasn't trying to be shady. I wasn't trying to be rude. But I just like, I did not want to like fall into temptation of like thinking about him in a way that, you know, I thought I shouldn't. Of like, oh, I like him or whatever, whatever. And so I remember I just didn't talk to him. I don't even know if he noticed.
I didn't.
Yeah, he's so oblivious
To everything.
at this point. But I do remember, he might not remember this, but it finally shifted because he made a comment like one day. Again, I just remember all the details.
Was
but
in the
we're like
kitchen.
sitting, yeah, we're sitting, and he said something like, "Oh, we're like joking," and then all of a sudden he goes, "Oh, it's not like you talk to me anyways." And I was like, I was literally offended because we had talked so much in California, but then I wasn't talking to him the first 3 days in Indiana, and I'm like, I was offended, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, if this is my brother in Christ, I shouldn't ignore him and not talk to him at all. Like, that's messed up. And so we started talking again. And I like purposely was trying to be kinder.
Yeah, and
and
keep
be
in
like
mind,
a sister.
I'm still in this situation.
I knew that. That's why I wanted to keep my distance. But it's like I literally remember very like as soon as I show up, or maybe before I even showed up, I started to overhear him. Like I was not trying to eavesdrop at all, but it's like I was literally always around when he was talking about the issues he was having, and like the second guessing and the confusion and like, is this the Lord, and like I don't know what to do, all these types of questions and feelings he was having. And I just kept being present when he would talk about it, and I was trying to not be present because I did not want to put my 2 cents in. And I didn't want to manipulate the situation. But it's like it just kept happening over and over and over again when I was around. And, you know, I started getting desire for him again. And I'm like, oh, Lord, I don't want desire for Dylan.
And I would literally ask her questions, too. Like, I would ask
Yeah.
you, like,
do you think this is the Lord? And I'd be like, I literally would answer without answering. Like, I would not give him I knew it wasn't the Lord. Even apart from me, like, even if I wasn't going to be his wife.
Do you think you should have told me, though? Do you feel like...
No, 100% no.
No, I mean, because you said you knew it wasn't the Lord. So do you think, like, you're justified to not tell me still?
No, the Lord made it clear not to say a yes or a no because I did not want to manipulate the situation. And, like, I just felt like I remember giving you advice, like, oh, you know, the Lord gives you peace.
Probably like the typical, just go pray about it or something.
Well, no, I remember sharing my situation of how I thought, like, this person was of the Lord, but I was never, like, solid on the answer. It's like I would go back and forth and I was double-minded. So I remember sharing that with Dylan and, like, sharing things with him, but I would not tell him that, no, this isn't the Lord. Because I just didn't feel peace about going there about it. But yeah, eventually, you know, I'm gaining desire again. And yeah, I'm like, Lord, I don't know what to do. And I was just really unrestful about it. And even too, like, there was this other, like, I was a mess, honestly. There was this other guy in the back of my mind too of like, okay, this guy's actually pursuing me. This other guy from the California school. At least I thought he was pursuing me. I can't say that for sure. But just in my mind, like, we were very similar. We had the same, like, vision, I think. And we just had very similar personalities. And I'm like, oh, he seems like he likes to talk to me. He seems like he's kind of trying to pursue me. Like, maybe this is the Lord because he's pursuing me. And, you know, I kind of have a desire, where the first guy that was trying to pursue me, zero desire, zero interest. I just liked him as a friend. This guy, I could see it. But at the same time, I was also feeling drawn towards Dylan. So I was like, man, Lord, like, what's happening? And I was just, like, getting so frustrated with myself because I really, like, my heart was not to be distracted. Like, background story, I was never in a relationship. Like, I had no idea what that was even like. And so for me, I think I had, like, all these expectations of what it was supposed to look like. And so it was always exciting, but very scary. And so I was like, Lord, I really, like, you know, my heart is not to be distracted by who's going to be my husband. Like, I really don't want to think like that. I want to be focused on you. And so I was so broken up about like not knowing what the Lord was saying that I was like literally so like, Lord, you need to tell me who it is very clearly so that I'm never distracted again. So I could just like focus on what you're calling me to do in Indiana and like to seek you. And so literally that night I had a dream and it was with Dylan. And it was super symbolic. Like it wasn't like me in a wedding dress, but it was like kind of similar. And it, just like this whole dream played out. And I woke up and I literally knew that I knew that I knew that Dylan was my husband. And he was still in this situation with this other person. But I just knew that I knew that I knew, and like nobody could convince me otherwise. Like my sisters that I love were still trying to tell me like I think I did tell them the dream, but they were still trying to be like, you know, Gabby, I don't know, because they didn't want me to get my hopes up, you know. They were trying to be a good friend, but I'm like, you know, you're saying this, but I know what the Lord said, so I don't care. Not rudely, but I was just like, I know the Lord. He's like, he made it so clear to me. I just know. Because even I learned during that time there was another person that liked Dylan, and it was just like there's all these people that like Dylan. We're not gonna get into that.
Some of them I didn't even know. Again, I was so oblivious though. Like
yeah, he was so oblivious. Honestly, there were so many people that liked him, and they really thought it was the Lord. Which I didn't say anything to them about it. But yeah, so it's like the Lord just made me know, thankfully, because I cried out that night. And so from there on, again, I didn't say anything to Dylan. And eventually, things didn't work with them.
So the way that happened was there was this one night. Again, it was one of those breaking point type moments where I remember it was late at night and I was like FaceTiming the person. We were texting. And I felt that jealousy, like lack of trust, and it was just eating me alive. And I remember one of my other brothers was there, and all the guys were staying in this one RV. Like there was an extra RV in the property, and so I walk into the RV, and this is one of my brothers who's obviously more mature in the Lord than I am. So I'm going up to him for some counsel, and I'm like, hey, I'm feeling all these emotions like that I used to feel in the world when I was in these, you know, really bad relationships. Like I feel like I don't trust this person, and it's really not going anywhere. And I just remember him confirming what I was feeling and saying like, yeah, if you're feeling any of that, like, you know, that's not how you would feel with the person that God is bringing in your path, basically. And so I remember opening up saying, well, okay, like how do I go about this? And one of my biggest prayers, because I really wanted to be gentle, like I didn't want to hurt this person. That was like my biggest fear. And I just remember my simple prayer of like, okay, Lord, I just pray that this person would stop talking to me. Like I want them to not like me if this is not of you. And so literally after that prayer the next day, and it was such a crazy day because the moment that this person reached out to me, they of course answered. It was the answered prayer. They said, yeah, I just feel like I'm not ready. And when they said that, you would think I'd be so hurt on the inside.
He was literally dancing. I remember this.
I started dancing in the yard, like joyous, like I felt free. It was like something.
Which is crazy because I felt that same feeling when I let go of the person that I really liked too. Because it's like, it was spiritual. And I actually remember that night, we were sitting in like the front of the kitchen. It's not like the actual kitchen table, but do you remember? It was like I don't know, like kind of like a breakfast table. And you were telling all this to me. And like you were literally dancing then too and like smiling a bunch and laughing. And like we literally shared a moment. Do you remember this?
I remember that day in the kitchen where I told everybody like, hey, I'm like good now. Like,
but I remember like we specifically like we're sitting by ourselves talking. And I literally remember it just being like different.
I don't remember that.
Memory. You need to work on that, man. But yeah.
I remember the next day though.
What was the next day?
The next day is when we were on the swing by the RV.
We were on the swing by ourselves? Really?
Well, I think there was people around, but like I just remember we were talking, and then I think that's when things. This is a whole nother thing. That's when things started being revealed with us.
Well, I actually don't remember this, so if you want to share.
Yeah, so the next day, Gabby and I were talking on the swing, and we were just sharing, like, stories and stuff. And you know, like, kind of how, like, when you're talking to someone and you're, like, saying something, but you're saying it in a way to where they, like, don't understand, like you were, like, talking about, I don't know if you even shared the dream, but we were, like, saying things about each other, like, words, basically, but we were still kind of pretending we were, like, oblivious.
You liked me the day after?
No, not liked you, but I'm saying like things started to click, like that piece came and like it's hard to explain. I don't know how you don't remember that.
I know, I'm trying to think. Are you sure it was the next day?
I'm
Because I
pretty sure
remember,
it was
like,
the
we
next
went
day.
camping. And that's when the Lord did a lot.
Yeah, there was the 4th of July camping trip,
Yeah.
but we were still talking like the day after. Because I remember that was such a big deal and it was a huge part of the testimony because obviously this whole thing with this other person just ended. And so like my biggest fear was, man, people are going to think I'm such a like scumbag, like I'm just going after the next girl. But it wasn't like that.
Did anything happen else before the 4th of July weekend?
I just feel like we were like
I remember we were talking
we
more.
we weren't like purposely sharing things to like we still weren't even aware that we like were talking in such a way. It's so hard to explain. Like we were sharing stories, or not stories, but like visions and dreams and stuff that were like about each other, but like we weren't making it known to each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if you shared your, I don't know.
No, I remember that. I just didn't remember the timing of it. But I remember because you literally were like talking about, like, you had a dream about my family and all this stuff. And I had a dream about your family.
Yeah, but we were saying it in a way like it
Like,
wasn't.
casually.
It wasn't like playing like, oh, I'm gonna tell Gabby this because I like her all of a sudden. It was
Because I
just
don't
like,
think you even really liked me yet.
it was just like, for example, I had a dream about her mom.
Yeah.
It was before I even pursued her, and basically I was praying over her mom because she was like struggling with something in the dream, and I told Gabby that, but it wasn't like in a manipulative way, like, oh, I want her to think I'm pursuing her or something.
Yeah.
And so anyways, then the camping trip eventually happened, which is like the very
Yes.
beginning of our journey.
Even too, it's like we kept ending up just like in California. Like we kept ending up at like the same place. Like I remember, oh, actually yes, I do remember some things before even camping. It's like we would both wake up at the same, like not at the same time, but we'd both be in the house
That's creepy.
at like 6 a.m. and like
Oh, we'd
he
make
would
breakfast.
Yeah, we'd like make breakfast together. We started doing like the dishes together. It would just like always happen that we were in the same place. We were recording like YouTube videos together outside.
And even the videos, when we started doing videos, and,
They were so obvious.
but I still really wasn't that like, I was still
It was
kind of,
obvious.
I don't know, other people said it's obvious.
Literally, there was a bunch of people that reached out like, "Oh, is there something going on?" When they saw our first,
Yeah.
like, if we were to link our first YouTube video, it was so clear that we liked each other.
Yeah.
But maybe like, I mean, I knew I liked Dylan at the point, but maybe Dylan didn't
I
realize.
still think we were just really friendly, and because of my situation, I was already wrestling with the idea, like, if I get too friendly with Gabby, people are gonna think I'm just, again, this guy that goes after the next person.
Yeah, but so we just kept ending up in the same place and talking more and like building our friendship even further. So then the 4th of July weekend happened. We went on a camping trip.
No.
And didn't you receive a word from somebody or something like that? I don't know.
I just remember the whole camping trip. Oh, we forgot about the coffee place with the kickstart. Didn't it start there technically?
Well, that was the day that like the thing ended with you guys.
Oh yeah, that's okay.
It was after that.
So anyways, yeah, back to the
It's a lot to remember.
back to the camp. Yeah, this is eventually gonna end, and we're gonna realize, oh my gosh, we missed this, and this.
Yeah.
But we're at the campsite. It's 4th of July weekend, and that's when things really started.
Like sped up. Like all
Yeah.
this happened so fast and I was like petrified. I actually remember like cuz we were only going camping for a couple days, but like people started to pick up that like there was like feelings between Dylan and I, and they would like say things and like suggest me to like say something to Dylan. I'm like, oh no, I'm not going up to Dylan. I'm not telling him anything. He can come up to me.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. One, because I didn't feel like the Lord was leading that, and two, I was scared. Like I was very scared. You know, all this time I was like, oh, I'm desiring somebody, but like when it came to it, I was like, maybe I don't desire somebody. Like this is terrifying. But I remember, you know, like Dylan was saying, we started having conversations again during camping trip. And it was like literally more like dreams and like signs about each other. And our vision was starting to like become more like coincide, I guess. Like kind of like the same, like we're starting to see the same way and like the same perspective. Yeah. And I literally remember Dylan like straight out saying like, oh, I feel like I should come to New York with you.
You remember?
Yeah, you had like you literally were saying something like that before you came out and said you wanted to pursue me. Again, it was like another thing with my family, and you knew that I was gonna go back to New York at some point to visit my family.
Must have been so like childlike though.
Yeah, because you're like, and I remember being like scared when he said that. Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, like is he suggesting that he's starting to like me? I was picking up on it.
I think obviously during the camping trip I liked her, but when I told her that that was not my intention again. I was just like, when I had dreams and stuff at the time, or I'd get words, I would just say it so casually, versus now, because I've been through so many ministries, it's like I overthink it now versus at the time.
Yeah, he just was blurting out things and I was like, oh my goodness, like what? And so I started getting scared, and I started praying a lot during this trip, like, Lord, if this isn't your timing of like us, but like pursuing each other, like please prevent it. If it's not your timing, like I don't want it to be rushed. And the Lord literally started speaking to me like exactly how it was going to happen. And told me the day that it was going to happen, that he was going to have this conversation with me.
Your friend Exona's dream.
Yeah. Yeah, like the Lord was giving me all these details about how it was going to happen. And I think the Lord literally did that because I was so scared that he had to like prepare me to like receive this. And, you know, like my best friend who was there also had a vision prior to this, that Dylan was going to pursue me in a certain type of way, that we were going to be outside of the RV having a conversation. And that's when he was going to open up to me and like confess his feelings. And we were literally at, you know, in front of the RV. Yeah. And so you can jump in.
I forget how long the camping trip was, but let's just say it was like 3 days.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. 3-4 days.
But I remember like the whole time I knew I was going to eventually talk to her, but I just kept putting it off and off. I was hoping that she'd come up to me, which I knew wasn't going to happen. Yeah. And the other people who were kind of aware, they knew it wasn't going to happen either. They kept saying, you're going to have to do it. Specifically, one person was really on my case. Yeah. And I'm glad she was. Shout out to you if you're watching. But it was funny because I was vlogging the trip, and there's like one vlog where it was like hinted so many times. This person would kept saying, it's happening. Yeah. Because they knew I was going to eventually talk to Gabby.
And little did Dylan know I was seeing all of this, and I literally knew what they were talking about. And I was like, Lord, no, I'm so scared.
Gabby had some really good discernment.
Yeah, like I knew the entire, like the moment Dylan caught feelings for me, I picked up on it. Like the Lord, I'm so thankful. Anytime someone liked me, the Lord showed me, because I needed that. You know, that's just what I really needed personally. I needed to know that to prepare my heart, or to realize it wasn't the Lord for other people. But literally the Lord showed me every single step of like what was going to happen, because I think I would have ran away if he didn't. Like I literally was petrified of Dylan
I was like
coming up to me. Yeah, he was scared too, but I think I was more scared internally.
Yeah, I was pacing so many times back and forth, just walking outside. Mm-hmm. And then the moment hit.
It was at nighttime.
I waited so late at night. I remember there's a campfire going. I was kind of just to myself. I seen Gabby in the distance, you know, chilling on a little chair outside the RV, just like the dream that her friend had. I walk up to Gabby, and it's funny now because I didn't have like a line or anything. I didn't know what I was going to say, but the way it came out was like so silly. I was like, hey, Gabby.
He's like, hey, Gabby, I got to tell you something.
I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to run this race with you.
Yeah, that's literally how he asked me. He said, will you run this race with me? It was like your last words.
And we're going to get into that because that line, that's not really what happened.
Yeah, not at all.
Like, our whole story changed. But, like, I had good intentions when I was saying that because I knew how, like, at the time, obviously, Gabby was different. Like, she was so on fire. All she ever wanted to do was travel. So that's why I said it like that. Because I'm like, well, I assumed we're going to travel together and go place to place, and that's going to be our life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what I was hoping for in the moment, though. I had no idea what she was going to say. Because at first, she had this serious look on her face. And I was like, is she going to, like... It's either going to be an instant turn down, or she's going to be like every other girl in this ministry and be like, we got to pray for, like... Or praying fast for, like...
That's good, though.
10 days. It is good. But, like, sometimes it can just be, like, a religious thing that people do every time. You know
It's
what I
just so funny because little did Dylan know. Like, I was waiting for him for, like, who knows how long at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I did first surrender him to the Lord. And then the Lord showed me. And so, like, I started sharing with him, like, all these things that the Lord showed to me. And then we had, like, we were talking for, like, 6 hours. It was crazy.
Yeah.
We were up, like, all night talking.
That was, like, my favorite moment, though, at the campsite. Because those 6 hours felt like 2.
Yeah. It was just crazy.
And we just kept talking about, like, the stars and stuff. And it was that instant honeymoon phase, you know? Just in love instantly.
Yeah.
And then the journey really, like, piece by piece started coming together.
Yeah.
Eventually, with the rest of our time in Indiana, we just continued to enjoy the time that we had because it wasn't, like, literally...
It was literally 5 days later that I left.
Yeah.
It was literally 5 days later. It was crazy. Or maybe it was 3.
No, I knew it was, like, it wasn't that...
It was
only
really
a few
short.
days.
And I didn't want to go. I was really wrestling. But I had already told the sister I was going to come visit her, and I knew I really needed to see my family because I hadn't seen them in such a long time at this point. I don't even know if it was like a year. I have no idea. But it had been a very long time. I knew I had to go and visit them. So, like, Dylan and I had, like, just such little time together. But I'm really thankful because though we didn't have a lot of time together, as knowing that we liked each other and that it was the Lord, we had a lot of time together as friends that we spent. And so, like, we had at least built that, like, foundation of friendship. And, like, even though we didn't know each other for a long time, when you're spending every single day with someone, like, many hours, and, like, the way we were of just how the school ran, like, you get to know someone pretty fast.
And we still got to have deep conversations.
Yeah,
while we were in
a lot of
Indiana.
them, definitely.
Like, we even made a lot of things known. We, like, talked about, like, some pretty heavy stuff. Like, we were talking literally if it was okay to hold hands.
Yeah, like,
or
we were
hug.
going over boundaries and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I went to New Hampshire, and then I went to New York. And then eventually the Lord brought us back together.
Yeah. But there's still little moments, like, we don't have to go into every single detail, but, like, I remember with Gabby, one of the confirmations for me was I wasn't feeling the same way that I felt with the other person, where, like, I instantly trusted Gabby. I knew when she was leaving, like, I didn't really have to worry about anything. But on Gabby's end, there was I remember you were questioning a little bit still because you called me one night where I was in the car in Indiana. It was when you were back in New York. And you were like...
Oh, yeah, there was, like... So I, like, knew that I knew, but then when I got to New York, there was, like, 3 days where I was, like, really battling with it because I was thinking in my flesh, to be honest, still. Because I was still thinking of, like, okay, we're going to travel. We're never going to get a place. We're just going to go from house to house. Because that's what we were doing at the time. Like, just staying with people and, like, going to the next place. Because that was my idea of fruit at the time. And I'm not saying that's not fruitful for some people, but only if it's the Lord leading. And, like, the Lord started to lead me out of that at that time. But I remember I was wrestling because I'm like, okay, Lord, I believe you said this, but how is this going to be fruitful for me? Like, how is being with Dylan going to be fruitful? Because I know he doesn't desire to travel. I could just discern certain things. Like, I knew the Luke 10, the way we were doing it, wasn't really his vision for his life. And like I just knew we saw things differently, and there was just like a lot of things that the Lord was still working through with Dylan, to be honest. Like a lot of different, I mean, same with
Yeah.
me. But it's like my strengths and his strengths were different. My weaknesses and his weaknesses were different, like very vastly different. And so it's like, Lord, how in the world is this going to be fruitful? Like, I don't get it. I have no idea.
And we had people that knew that, like even when we were still in Indiana, like we had two people speaking into us one night, and they were just like, basically from my end, telling me I need to have certain things prepared,
Yeah.
like as far as financial
Like
and
practicals.
just a lot of practical things. But me and Gabby, of course, weren't thinking that way. We were thinking more like, well, it doesn't have to look that way, and we were just kind of going about it. Not that it wasn't the Lord, but
Yeah.
there were definitely things that we were wrong about, to be
Yeah.
honest.
But yeah, so I was like being a bit double-minded, but then like the Lord literally gave me confirmation. I was walking down the road, taking a walk, and I approached when I was asking Lord, like, is this faithful? Like right to my left was this whole what do you call it? When you see all the like harvest. It was like a huge harvest right next to me, and I was like, okay, I know this is true. And so like after that, I was good. I was solid again. But I was just thinking in my flesh of like I was looking at Dylan in his flesh, to be honest, like entirely. But yeah, I was in New York for about 6 weeks, I think it was, and then the Lord spoke to me to go to Texas, and then Dylan also went to Texas.
That was a whole thing too. That wasn't planned. My
Yeah.
my family, believe it or not, when I finally got to see them again, guess where they were at? They were in Texas. Before Gabby was in Texas, which is crazy. So I was already planning on seeing my family because it's been so long. And so that ended up working out because the next place we were going to see each other was Texas, which was where, remember how I said, like, with Gabby, I wasn't feeling those same emotions? Well,
That's when the attacks started happening, for
Yeah.
sure. On Dylan's end, it's so funny because, like, Dylan's view of Texas and my view of Texas were so vastly different. Like, for me, it was, like, this time of bliss and joy and, like, excitement, and Dylan was just, like, attack.
It was like the worst season that I've ever had out of every state that I've been to in my entire life.
It's so funny.
Like, I actually, maybe I'm skipping ahead too much, but
Yeah,
this
you are.
This is just one of the things that I wanted to read. So basically, or I'll explain a little bit before I read it. But we were in Texas, and Gabby had this idea to connect with some people there while we were there. And so I was with my family, literally in a desert, no joke, like in the middle of nowhere on this property. And Gabby was there too. And so there was this day where she was going to leave for a few days. I forget how long it was because you were going to a wedding.
Yeah, so like we met up back at this event. That's why I went. One of my old ministries that I like did some stuff with was having this event, and I knew I was supposed to go there. And then Dylan ended up going there too. And so then after that, I go on the same property that he and his family are on, and I have like my separate living space. But shortly after arriving, I think a week after, like I had already planned to go to my friend's wedding, like one of my good friends. And so I was going to be gone for 5 days in California. And I was like so excited about it. You know, I loved going to born again weddings. This was going to be my first born again wedding. And I was just like so excited. But little did I know, Dylan was like really struggling with the idea of me going
I was
somewhere.
like tormented.
Yeah, and I was like, what's wrong with you?
Because here's what you gotta understand. This was my perspective. Indiana, like the time that we did have together, we were getting so much time together where we got to know each other. We would still do the videos and stuff, and there, like, it was that pursuing phase. Versus Texas, I thought, oh, like it's gonna continue. But I just felt like Gabby was still on that mission mindset. Like it was kind of like both worlds. Like she knew that God was doing something with us, but she also still had her own journey.
Yeah,
And that was the
definitely.
tough part.
Yeah, it's like for me, whether it was the Lord or not, I still believe the Lord led me to go there. And there was like other opportunities that I eventually passed on. Like not passed away, but I was like, I'm not doing that. But like for me, I was like, okay, Lord, I know you're leading us to be together. Like it's clear that, you know, we're going to get married. Like we just know that we know. but is there anything else you have for me? And I was still like open to the idea of like, not for somebody else, but like, oh Lord, like what is the timing? Like, is it now for us to get married? Is it going to be later? Because I mean, it's just like our story happened so beyond quickly. Like, it was just crazy. And so like I was still asking the Lord, like, hey Lord, like it's still you and me right now. Like, is there anything else you have for me? Anywhere else you want me to go? Any other missions you have? Like anything you want me to experience? But Dylan didn't view it that way. Like for him, he already thought like our journeys were to be intertwined. And so he could have been right on that. But
I could have been wrong too, though.
yeah. And so it's like, I guess it's one of those things that we don't know, but we just saw things very differently. Like for him, he really struggled with the idea of me leaving for 5 days. But for
That's true. Well, because again, here, like, there was so much stuff happening before.
Yeah, you were
left,
dealing
too.
with like a lot of like internal.
I had the trust again, and well, maybe not the
Jealousy.
trust. It was mainly the jealousy because there were these situations. Like one, there was a close friend, and it just felt like it was really weird. Like I kept feeling like this person was trying to pursue Gabby, even though I was pursuing her, and it was made known. Like I remember the person literally at this.
Don't get into too many details.
Oh, I'm like, it's an important detail. I'm not gonna say a name. Let's just say Bobby's his name. Bobby.
I'm just saying, don't give it away.
It's an important detail. I'm not mad at the person. Bobby basically asked to go get food with Gabby, and it like set me off, to be honest. I got over it at some point, but it set me off in my flesh. Like I just held it in, but I was so mad. Cause I'm like, I'm like pursuing this person, and you want to go get like a
Food.
go get food. You want to get food with him, and then there was this other situation.
Oh yeah, this other person came too.
And then-
This other guy.
I was so mad because my family's so mature in the Lord, and then my family had friends there too. They're all mature. They're like all in their 40s, 50s, and I'm like, this kid comes into the picture again.
We met him at the event.
I feel like he's pursuing Gabby and like being subtle, and then like some of the stuff he was saying was just crazy. Like he shared a story about like why he was at the event and how basically he took the Bible and he did this, and like he put his finger on
And
a
he
verse.
said, I have to come back with you guys to where you're staying in Texas.
He was like trying to get his way in and get onto the property where Gabby and I were staying. And that would have just been a total distraction because we were pursuing each other, getting to know each other still. And obviously I'm in the wrong because like I was in my flesh.
Super jealous.
But my reasoning was right because it was true. Like this would have been a huge distraction. I could see right through it.
Yeah, but that was before I left for 5 days. So I was gone for 5 days.
But that's why I was scared of those 5 days.
Yeah, he was scared about like the people that were gonna see me, or the other like men of God and all this stuff. It's like I feel bad now because I didn't know to the capacity he was struggling. But for me, it's like it's funny because he was like thinking all these things, but like for me, I wasn't thinking that way at all.
But you're so oblivious to the people that I thought were like.
Yeah, it's like maybe people liked me, but like I did not like them. I didn't even see it that way, and so like. Yeah, we just didn't see things the same. Like, I didn't even know he was dealing with all these things till after I got back. Because I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think that way. I just thought, I'm going to go support my friend at this wedding. And, like, I think he was thinking that I was going to like somebody else. But I really didn't.
Not even, it was more so I was afraid to receive, like, a message or a call. Like, hey, I feel like things have shifted. And
yeah.
Like, that would have hurt because obviously I really liked Gabby, but this I wanted to bring this on our podcast. It was a journal writing on. It was 9:32 p.m. on 9/18/2022.
Specific.
And it was titled "Almost One More Day." So, yeah, I was just like Gabby was at this wedding, and I was up at night struggling, and so I'll just read some of it. I could see the enemy really working in Gabby right now. So many distractions and people she needs to be careful about. Give her the eyes to see and be wise in any situation. She has seemed off today, and I can sense she is being tugged with the idea of wanting all these other things. She needs to realize she's being refined, which means pressure is taking place. I don't even remember writing that, which is crazy. She does not understand why some people have been acting different, especially some brothers in Christ. Lord, make her see what is going on. Make her see the attack. Why is so much separation taking place? Even in several dreams, because she's allowing the separation to take place from all the other doors she is focused on. So I'm not even just talking about people that I was worried about, but there were opportunities that Gabby had. Like there's a traveling opportunity that she had, and she was ready to hop on
to
that.
Tennessee.
And I was like,
but it's because I had a word. I wasn't just gonna randomly go for it.
and so she needs to not run ahead. She needs to allow God to make things clear. It is hard for many people to receive from me. I think it might honestly be hard for Gabby to hear God speak through me. God is in control of all things, but she's always looking for the next thing. We both need to grow, but God is trying to grow us together. God made all of this very clear, and I pray in Jesus' name she would be patient and allow God to pave the way for us. Like, even in this writing, I can see some of, I can see some of me, but I think there's a lot of truth to it as well.
Yeah, I think it was like a mixture.
Because, again, Gabby was just, it was kind of like that 1 foot for us and then 1 foot for her dreams that she still had.
Yeah, I think it was more so like because we weren't married, like I didn't really view it as like, oh, we go everywhere together. Like I just didn't really know what that looked like. It wasn't like an intentional like, oh, I'm going to leave Dylan behind. I was literally like purely trying to like be like, Lord, what's your will? And I think that's why the Lord protected me if there was anything bad coming my way. Like Dylan was getting words about distractions or like other doors, and that totally could have been true. But because my mindset wasn't to be distracted and wasn't to purposely do my own thing, I think that's why the Lord kept me away from any attack that was coming, if that makes sense. Because I was just like, Lord, whatever you want. Even if I was in the wrong, I really did want the Lord's will. And so I think that's why, because I actually did have opportunities, like he's saying, and even when I was in California, I had the opportunity to stay longer, but I was like, no, like that's not what the Lord's leading. And so thankfully the Lord guided me in case there was something the enemy was plotting.
So the rest of our time in Texas actually ended up being good. I remember the day that she did come back. I was so excited. My parents drove to the airport with me and we picked her up. Went back to the property, and from that moment,
it was bliss.
It was just, we really did get to know each other. I remember a lot of our favorite moments. We would just sit outside on my stepdad's truck and just talk and shit, like.
And we were very good at like expressing our feelings to one another too, and like listening. Honestly, better than we are now.
Yeah.
Like we were very patient with each other.
Like we haven't even dived into like what's changed and what we could do better. And
which that'll be for another video. This one's like.
Yeah, this is a long.
Honestly, like. We're not going to have time to go into our marriage portion testimony of like how the Lord provided for our wedding and all that, because
where should we stop then?
I think we should stop once like we're at the end of Texas. Like we could finish our Texas journey and then leave the rest for the next episode, because I think it's been like an hour and a half maybe.
Okay, so yeah, there is a lot of just time together in Texas. I'm trying
a lot of sweet times.
I'm trying to think of all the highlights. We did get to. It wasn't even just ministry. Like there were moments where we'd actually go to Walmart and stuff and like preach to people in the store.
Some guy gave us money.
But I just really liked the moments where we sat down on the truck. We even hanging with my family was fun. We had some picnics like on the property that was fun.
Yeah.
And then what else?
It was just like, for me, it was such a simple time. Because I remember something the Lord was really doing in my heart is, again, like, I had such a fear when it came to relationships and someone pursuing me. Like, that was terrifying to me. And because I remember the day I did get back from California and Dylan wanted to talk to me. And we had a conversation. It was really good, but at first I was terrified. Because he was being very vulnerable with me. I think he was even crying. I think. He was, like, upset or whatever. Just in general. And so it's like through the time in Texas, the Lord was really breaking me in that area of being fearful of like, and I think that's why Dylan had all these thoughts that like I didn't like him as much. Because because he was like journaling when I was gone the 5 days. Like he thought I didn't like him as much because I wasn't good at like expressing that because I was scared. Like I wasn't good with like physical touch because I'd never been with anybody, so it wasn't natural for me to like hold somebody's hand or like sit close to them. Like that just was not natural.
And I struggled to see that though, and that's where I was in the wrong because to be honest, now that I look back, I actually forget that Gabby was never in a relationship. And so, like, now that I realize that now, I'm like, whoa, now it makes sense. Like, I should have had some grace because I was still kind of just thinking about how I was feeling and what I was going through, but I didn't realize what was going through her head.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, she could have said something, but I'm still in the wrong because I didn't even, like, really consider that at the time. And
yeah, because I don't think I really started sharing about the fear until like later on in Texas. I don't know how long exactly we were there for, maybe like a month-ish, but not until like later on when I was more comfortable with Dylan was I starting to be vulnerable in certain areas, because like I just wasn't used to vulnerability in like a relationship type of way. Like I didn't even want to use the word relationship. I'm like, we're not even in a relationship. Dylan's pursuing me. I was just like very like strict with my wording and just like I didn't want to do anything wrong, and it was just like, it was literally brand new to me. I had no idea how to be in a relationship, and I never thought I was like going to be good at being in a relationship. Like I was scared of failing that, and like I didn't know how to comfort Dylan, and I didn't know how to be comforted either. And so it was just like this whole thing of like, but then like the longer it went on, the Lord started to soften like my heart to the idea, and it just became so easy to like have conversations with Dylan, and it became so easy eventually to like open up and easy to hear him out, and like that was probably the biggest work the Lord did in me in not California, in Texas.
So now we're just gonna wrap up Texas really quick. So after all this time of getting to know each other, because there's so many more details in Texas, basically we're on this family's property, and the whole idea was again to just like they wanted a homestead, and there was other families on the property, and eventually things got really bad, and there were some words, and there was this whole situation where Gabby and I actually ended up going to one of the people's doors and asking them if we could do deliverance on them.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother topic that we could talk about in the future.
Yeah, we could have like a topic of like all the deceptions we've walked through.
Yeah. But anyways, that whole situation basically led to me, Gabby, and my family praying about a date.
Oh. Yeah, praying about a date to leave Texas. And we didn't know in like regards to what that was going to look like, but I remember we all received a date, and then that's when like I think it was Scott actually brought up the idea of like, okay, let's go to New York and get you guys married then.
Yeah, he literally
like, what?
My stepdad literally brought it up
and
first.
And that's not like him to like jump to something like that.
But I don't know if it was before or if it was after that, but Gabby and I eventually did get words where we just heard
not to wait. It's not good to wait, is what we heard.
And then I heard soon, or one of us heard soon.
You heard soon, and then I was like, Lord, yeah, this was maybe like a day before we were all praying of when to leave. But he heard the word soon. I was like, Lord, you need to tell me that, because, I'm all for, like, getting married when you know it's the Lord and, like, not falling into temptation, but, like, this is terrifying. Marriage is, like, a whole nother topic.
I think it was just, looking back, to definitely keep us safe.
Yeah, and so...
especially me.
And so I heard it's not good to wait, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's a scary word. Like, what does that mean?
At the time, we thought it was because of the times we were in, and, like, But
honestly, I didn't know what I thought it was. I was like, okay, is this, like, temptation? Is it, like, a door will be closed if we don't get married? Is it we'll back out of this? Like, I kind of didn't really know. It was, like, a mixture. And then the next day or a couple days later, we don't know the exact time. And that's when we got the date. And then Scott said, let's go then and get you guys married.
The last thing I want to say before we end the video is the biggest moment of Texas was I just felt in my spirit like I was supposed to call Gabby's dad. This was a huge moment. It was a big day. I remember being in my parents' RV. Gabby's in the living room area. My parents are in the kitchen area. I go up into my parents' room, and I called Gabby's dad.
And this was before we knew we were going to head to New York.
Yeah.
Like, he He called my dad, I think, because he didn't know when we were heading to New York, and he just felt like he was supposed to.
No, it was really just because I felt like I was supposed to. And so I called, and I was like, hey, like, I know I haven't met you yet. I know this is really random and on the spot, but I've gotten to know your daughter, and I really like her, and I feel like the Lord's calling us together. And I just
You asked for his blessing.
I asked for his blessing, and he said no. On the phone, he said no to me.
Well, I thought what he said is, let's meet in person first.
But he said no, we have to meet in person first, and then we just hung up. And then literally that same day, later that night,
It wasn't even that long after.
we were having dinner, and I get a phone call, and so I walk off into the field, like, it was a huge field, and he's like, hey, I think he was talking to your mom, and your mom said something, and, like, he changed his mind, and he said, if Gabby's happy, then I'm happy.
And he's like, the choice is hers.
Yeah. And so I got the blessing, and then that's really where the next episode comes into play.
Yeah.
Sorry if this was
Cliffhanger.
Sorry if this was all over the place. This was our first episode.
Yeah, we're not used to doing podcasts, and, like, with our story, like, we haven't told it in this length of time in a long time, so it's like a lot of this we're trying to refresh in our brains, and there's just, like, a lot of details that happened in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can do some mini episodes in the future of, like, each thing, because again, I think we missed stuff. But anyways, sorry. Anyways, if you like this channel, please hit that subscribe button. We got our main channel. We'll still be posting on there as well. And, yeah, we're going to be doing more of these. The goal is to do these on Saturdays. Like, what time is it right now? It's
11:58.
Yeah, it's about to be midnight.
PM.
So we film these pretty late because our daughter goes to bed. But we're going to share more of these from the beginning of our story up until current time. So there's a lot of episodes. We eventually plan to do guests and have some of our friends on if they want to join. But anyways, thank you guys for listening.
And stay tuned for part 2
Yes.
of how the Lord brought us together.